So goaltenders. The Hockey News, of course, this week I got their issue, the top 100 goaltenders of all time. And I wanted to go through the ones that are not in the Hall of Fame. Because that's where we have the biggest debate, right? And go by number and just go through the top 50. And after 50, odds are there's no Hall of Famers in there anyways. Hall of Fame is this elusive thing. And looking at which goaltenders may qualify and may not is one of the most... well, just looking at Hall of Fame in particular, you're going to find a lot of division. Does Sedins belong in the Hall of Fame? I know where that conversation goes. It's interesting. Anyways, number 20 on the all-time goaltending list is Laurent Chabot. Chabot is not in the Hall of Fame. 2 Stanley Cups to his name. Vezina Trophy. Career spans from 1926 to 37. And a record of 200 wins, 146 losses, and 62 draws. Chabot is in that position that a lot of players end up in, where you're really good, you win a Vezina, you're one of the better goaltenders, right? 2 Stanley Cups to your name, but maybe they looked and went, well, he got those cups, but it was the team in front of him. It wasn't really Lauren as much as the team in front of him. And all of these reasons why, well, he's almost good enough, they add up for a while, and before you know it, he's not really considered on the ballot anymore. We're to the stage now where his career started almost 100 years ago. The odds of him ever getting in are low. Does he belong there? Probably, but the NHL's likelihood of inducting him has just dropped to the point where I'd be very surprised if he gets in. Number 24 on their list is Henrik Lundqvist. 0 Stanley Cups. I don't have to tell Rangers fans that. They know. 1 Vezina Trophy to his name, which is odd, but keep in mind, there are a lot of really solid goaltenders in the league, so not winning a Vezina Trophy doesn't necessarily mean not getting in the Hall. We will get to a goaltender where I've always heard, well, he never won a Vezina, so he doesn't belong in the Hall. That's a very interesting topic, because there are goaltenders who don't win the Vezina that get in the Hall. Lundqvist has played from 2005 until now. He has 431 wins, 275 losses, and 83 draws or overtime losses. Lundqvist, in my mind, absolutely belongs in the Hall of Fame. Yes. Doesn't matter whether they win or lose that Stanley Cup in 2014. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. At number 26 is Tom Barroso. He has 2 Stanley Cups to his name and a Vezina Trophy. And to me, if you have a cup and a Vezina, you should have a lot of consideration. Barroso played from 1983 to 2002. He had 369 career wins, 277 losses, 86 ties or overtime losses. The thing with Barroso is, A, the teams he played on were not dominant teams. Even though he won the 2 Stanley Cups with Pittsburgh, they had a middling record the 1 year out of the 2. Actually, both years they had not tremendous records, and then when they had a great season, they didn't win the Cup that year. The thing with Barroso, what's held him back, people would argue it's Tom Barroso himself. Now, maybe since he retired, maybe that's changed, but his personality as a goaltender, he wasn't known for being a very overly warm or friendly kind of gentleman, and that does make a difference when it comes to the voting after people retire. And I disagree with it as much as anybody else. I don't think it should matter if a guy is a nice guy or not a nice guy. And I would also argue that Eddie Belfour, who's not on this list because he made the Hall of Fame, Belfour wasn't known as an extremely nice guy by most either. So Barroso, for my money, I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame, and I'm kind of shocked he's not in it. Number 27 overall is Carey Price. No cups, of course. 1 Vezina Trophy. His career spanned from 2007 till now. He has 286 wins, 201 losses, 62 overtime losses. Does he belong in the Hall? That's an interesting question. And I'm torn on Price right now. I am. If Price's career ended tomorrow, there's some horrible accident, blows out his knee and he can never play again. Does Carey Price have a career right now that you look at and say, yes, he belongs in the Hall? I don't know. I'm on the fence. I need to see a couple of more really good seasons before I say, yes, to me, he's a Hall of Famer. Now, I know there's a lot of Montreal fans who are going to say, he's an absolute Hall of Famer. There's going to be some that say no, and there's going to be some who, like me, are on the fence. It's a very, as I said, divisive issue. At 29 on the list is Luongo. Now, I personally would not have had Carey Price ahead of Roberto Luongo, but I respect the process that the Hockey News uses to get their top goaltenders, so I will totally respect their numbers. Luongo's never won a cup, and he's never won a Vezina, and I heard that a lot. Never won a Vezina, he doesn't deserve to be anywhere near the Hall of Fame. Respect that opinion, disagree. 1999 until now has been his career, 471 losses, 471 wins, 376 losses, and 119 ties or overtime losses. His win-loss record, not fantastic, but he's played for the Islanders. His first year, they were not great. Florida, he's played for them. This is his second tour of duty with Florida. Their record, not fantastic. Vancouver, the first year he's in Vancouver, he puts up nearly a record number of wins in the NHL, beaten out by Marty Brodeur. And he was the only reason the Canucks made the playoffs that year. He was also the only reason the Canucks missed the playoffs the following year. The Canucks' fortunes were tied more to Luongo than I think he got credit for early. Later on, yes, they were a good team that without Luongo probably still would have been very good, but they win back-to-back President's Trophies, in part because of the player Roberto Luongo. I would argue him for Hall of Fame. I know I'm not going to necessarily be in the majority there. It really depends. Maybe he's finally in that place in his career where people can say, yeah, he belongs there, but we'll see what happens. And number 32, Jonathan Quick. 2 Stanley Cups to his record, no Vezinas, because Jonathan Quick saves his best hockey for April, May, and June, it seems. Jonathan Quick has played from 2007 until now. 293 wins, 195 losses, 56 ties or overtime losses. And, to me, Quick belongs in the Hall of Fame. Right now I would say Quick belongs in the Hall of Fame. He has those 2 Stanley Cups, and he has the 1 cup in 2012 that's his cup. And I know people have argued that it wasn't, but it was. Jonathan Quick, I think, gets into the Hall of Fame. I'd be very surprised if he didn't. Tim Thomas is at 35. He has 1 Stanley Cup and 2 Vezinas. Played from 2002 till 2014, and of course had the excellent career in Europe before that. 214 wins, 145 losses, 49 losses or overtime losses or ties. Tim Thomas is not in the Hall of Fame because of Tim Thomas. Yes. Tim Thomas's personality not the warmest. And I would argue that if we're going to induct guys for personality, Barroso probably would get in before Thomas. But that's just me. I may be completely wrong, but just anytime I've talked about Thomas and I've learned about Thomas, I'm more convinced that his personality may be what prevents him. And also the fact that elite part of his career wasn't very long. He was not an elite goaltender in the NHL for a very long period of time. And I know, if he'd gotten his break sooner, maybe he would have been. But it's a small sample size when it comes to seasons, and it is the Hall of Fame. Number 36, Curtis Joseph. No Stanley Cups, no Vezinas, never a first-team All-Star, never a second-team All-Star. Maybe he's a victim of playing in a fantastic era for goalies. Either way, he played from 1990 till 2009, had 454 wins, 352 losses, 96 ties, or overtime losses. Curtis Joseph had a very long career, played a ton of games. Therefore, he has a lot of wins. Is he a Hall of Famer? Probably not. If he was going to make the Hall of Fame, the way to do it would have been when Detroit signed him to that big money, leading them to the Stanley Cup, and instead, they were out in the first round that year. And I don't put it all at his feet, but he did have trouble living up to the contract they gave him. And I think that while Joseph was a very solid goaltender on some middling teams, I don't know that it all adds up to a Hall of Fame career. Mike Vernon is at 38 on the list. He has 2 Stanley Cups. He also has a Conn Smythe. No Vezinas. Played from 1982 to 2002. 385 wins, 274 losses, and 92 ties or overtime losses. I would have Vernon in the Hall. Absolutely. With shootout wins and more overtime wins now than when he retired, I would say that he would end up with probably 410 to 420 wins now. And I would honestly have him in the Hall of Fame. I'm surprised Vernon's not there, to be honest. Marc-Andre Fleury, number 40. This guy right here, number 29 for the Pittsburgh Penguins. 3 Stanley Cups to his name, no Vezinas, 2003 until now. 404 wins. This is to start the 2017-2018 season, so if you're looking at these totals and saying, those aren't right, nothing from this year is included on this. 229 losses, 72 ties or overtime losses. Marc-Andre Fleury is a yes for me. He's a yes for me for those 3 Stanley Cups, for his role in the last 2, and even though it was a bit part in 2016, but he was a big part in getting Pittsburgh to that postseason, and then, of course, Matt Murray takes over in the postseason. And the season after, it's the opposite, where Fleury's the one that saves their bacon. But Fleury has some very solid playoff numbers in a run to the Stanley Cup final for Pittsburgh that came up just short. And then, of course, last season with Vegas, that to me puts him over the top. He's a Hall of Famer. Now he's top 10 in wins. Nice long career. He's probably got another 3 years left, I would think, before we'll see a real drop-off in his play, which probably will put him up near the 500 win mark, depending on how Vegas does over the next few years. But yes, for me, Marc-Andre Fleury at 40 is low. I would probably have had him over Thomas. I probably would have had Thomas down in the early 40s, but I can understand why they did this, and again, I respect their process. At 41, Mika Kiprusoff, 0 cups, 1 Vezina trophy. He had that one fantastic season and then some really solid ones after. Played from 2000 to 2013, 319 wins, 213 losses, 71 ties or overtime losses. For me, is he a Hall of Famer? Probably not, but I can understand why other people think that he is. And, yeah, for me, he's just not quite at that level. 42, John Vanbiesbrouck, 1 Vezina trophy. He didn't win a cup because of expansion. If not for expansion and having to lose a goaltender, I think Vanbiesbrouck and Richter would have still been the tandem for the New York Rangers when they won that cup in '94, which would have been awesome, but it didn't happen for him. He played from 1981 to 2002, 374 wins, 346 losses, 119 ties or overtime losses for Vanbiesbrouck. Does he belong in the Hall? You know, honestly, it's something that it's a tough call. He gets Florida to the Stanley Cup final in 1996. Did they get there without Vanbiesbrouck? Probably not. Is that enough to warrant a Hall of Fame or Hall of Fame win? No, but he does get himself a Vezina trophy along the way, and he is a very solid goaltender through most of his career. Again, I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I can understand why he's not in the Hall. 43, Mike Richter. I'm surprised Richter's below Vanbiesbrouck, but I can kind of get it. Richter played from 1989 to 2002, 301 wins, 258 losses, 73 ties or overtime losses. And for me, Richter is, again, I can understand why he's not in the Hall, but I would have him in the Hall. His goaltending in '94 when the Rangers win the Stanley Cup for the first time since 1940 was amazing. And I am mildly surprised that Mike Richter hasn't made his way into the Hall of Fame. Not just for that run, and it's tricky because he did never win a Vezina, and he only won 300 games in his career. He played for 8 less years than John Vanbiesbrouck, but yeah, it would be hard for me to make the argument he doesn't belong there, because 94 for me is such a huge polarizing season. At number 44 is Dave Kerr. 1 Stanley Cup, 1 Vezina for him. Played from 1930 till 1941. 203 wins, 148 losses, and 75 ties. So if you're going to make an argument with Dave Kerr, with his 1 cup, 1 Vezina, 11-year career, 203 wins, you can say, well, he only won 200 games. That would be, for people who don't understand, the seasons were a lot shorter back then. Kerr was seen as kind of a trailblazer. You weren't allowed to freeze the puck. Back then, goaltenders had to play the puck and had to throw it out. You weren't allowed to freeze it, so what he would do is he'd actually make it so that his pad stuck to the ice. He couldn't move. Referee would see that, blow the whistle. He was seen as a trailblazer for a lot of reasons. And maybe the reason that he doesn't make it is because he walked out on the New York Rangers and Lester Patrick. He wanted to get paid. Lester Patrick's like, I'm not paying you what you want. So he walked out on the team. So yes, he has the Stanley Cup to his name, but maybe because of the fact he walked out on his team, because he wanted to get in there and he wanted his money. That may be why he's not in the Hall. It also may be the reason why he's 44th overall. But again, this is the politics of getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Number 45, Ron Hextall, who had no Stanley Cups, 2 Vezinas to his name. No Stanley Cups, 1 Vezina to his name. Yeah, I'll just put the line in there because at some point it looks like it. Yeah, anyways. No Stanley Cups, 1 Vezina to his name, played from 1986 to 1999, 296 wins, 214 losses, 69 ties or overtime losses. Hextall, I totally understand why he's not in the Hall of Fame. I do. Great goaltender, great flyer, but I get why he's not in the Hall of Fame. He does have the Conn Smythe that he won the year that the Oilers knocked out the Flyers in 7, but he was the only reason that it got to 7. And so I understand why he's not in there. Sergei Bobrovsky at 46. No Stanley Cups, 2 Vezinas for him. He's played from 2010 until now. 218 wins, 129 losses, 26 ties or overtime losses. Overtime losses since there weren't ties when he came into the league. He's not a Hall of Famer until he wins in the playoffs. Plain and simple. Mike Liut, who had one fantastic season, but no Cups, no Vezinas. He did have a Pearson Trophy for being MVP according to the National Hockey League's Players Association. Played from 1979 to 92. 292 wins, 271 losses, 74 ties for Mike Liut. That's a pretty solid record. But Liut had one fantastic season for St. Louis back in 81-82, I want to say. It's 80-81 or 81-82. He had the one fantastic season, and after that he was just a very good goaltender, not Hall of Fame worthy. Which it brings me to Pekka Rinne, Al Rollins, and John Ross Roach. None of these, in my eyes, have had a Hall of Fame career yet. Rinne's sitting with 311 wins. Al Rollins had a Cup and a Vezina and a Hart, but he only won 141 games, lost 205. And whether it's a result of him just playing for poor teams or whatever it is, that is likely why he never made it. He retired in 1960. So when your career ends in 60 and you haven't made it in 2018, you're probably not going to get in there. And John Ross Roach, fantastic beginning to his career, petered out towards the end. And it's likely because he wasn't able to maintain that level of excellence that he's not in there. Let me know which guy you see on the board that you think absolutely, yes, 100% belongs in the Hall. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.